Right boys, welcome to the 29th video on my channel. So we've gone over League 2 wage bills for this season. It's safe to say there was a few shockers with the likes of Barrow AFC paying their average player £3.5 a week. And now we move on to League 1 for even more shockers. At number 24, we've got Exeter City with an annual wage bill of £4,040,400, which equates to £77,700 a week for player wages. Based on a 26-man squad, the average Exeter player makes £155,400 a year, 1.5 times the average doctor in the UK. And the weekly wage comes in at an average of £3,237.50 a week. Exeter City are a relatively small club and a fan-owned club, so it's no surprise at number 24 here. Next up at number 23, we've got newly promoted Doncaster Rovers. Donny have taken a major dip in form under Grant McCann this season after initially continuing the wave of momentum which saw them crowned as last season's League 2 champions. The wage bill this season comes in at £4,120,000 and based on a 26-man squad, the average player makes £3,301 a week. At number 22, we've got AFC Wimbledon, another newly promoted side, so no surprise we're at the bottom of this list. But then there's the argument, is this worse off on their players just because they're a London club and so expenses are higher? The Dons are clearly punching above their weight at present under Johnny Jackson with a rather impressive opening 3 months of the campaign. The wage bill this season comes in at £4,210,000 and based on a squad size of 23, the average player makes £183,000 a year, which in all fairness is double of what the recommended salary is to live a comfortable life in London. And in terms of weekly salaries, the average player makes £3,813 a week. At number 21, we've got Mansfield Town with an annual wage bill of £4,480,000. Known for being big spenders for quite a few years in League 2, but it's not quite the same in League 1. The Stags are now into the second successive season at third tier level under the vastly experienced Nigel Clough, and it's pretty safe to say that the wage bill position is similar to where they actually are in the league. Their average player will make £3,589 a week. At number 20, we've got an absolute shocker. For those Barnsley are a small club merchants, you're absolutely quids in on this one. Pun intended. It may surprise some, but Barnsley are believed to have the 5th lowest payroll in League 1, despite only being relegated from the Championship 3 years ago. In what is Conor Horahan's first full season in full-time management, the Tykes' weekly payroll comes in at a figure of £86,500 and an annual sum of £4.49 million. To say we've got clubs coming up who spent less time in the EFL as a whole than Barnsley have spent just in the Championship, football's a funny game. Oh yeah, and their average player makes £3,741 a week. At number 19, we've got Northampton Town. Town are in the thick of a third straight season in League 1 under Kevin Nolan as they look to build on a 19th place finish last season. Their wage bill this season comes in at £4,890,000 spread across 27 players, with the average player making £3,773 a week. At number 18, we've got Port Vale with an annual wage bill of £4.91 million. It's safe to say the club are paying their players more than the league position suggests, just a little bit more. They're currently struggling to assert themselves back in the division under Darren Moore as the bottom of the league, but their average player makes about £3,400 a week. At number 17, we've got Lincoln City. Lincoln have been a steady performing side in League 1 for some time now, with Michael Scabala's side firmly in the playoff hunt at present. The Imps' wage bill per week comes in at a figure of £98,500, with experienced centre-back Sonny Bradley topping the individual charts of the list, which equates to £5.12 million over the season. Their average player makes just over £4,100 per week. At number 16, we've got Stevenage. Yes, little old Stevenage are the first side to surpass the £100,000 mark in terms of weekly wages on offer, with the Hertfordshire side's overall figure coming in to £107,392, and their annual wage bill comes in at a figure of £5.58 million. I think it's safe to say they've more than justified that wage bill so far this season. Based on a squad size of 27, it equates to around £4,300 per player. Now at number 15, we've got another side who, based on club size, you would have thought the wage bill would be lower in League 2 level, but despite being known as perennial relegation battlers, Burton Albion's annual wage bill comes in at £5.61 million. The Brewers have enjoyed an upsurge of form under Gary Bowyer as of late, with the highest earner at the Pirelli Stadium currently Charlie Webster, who joined from Chelsea in 2024. Based on a relatively large squad of 29 though, their average player makes £4,030 a week. At number 14, we've got Peterborough United. Peterborough are up next with the Cambridge side looking to resurrect a disastrous start to the season under newly appointed Luke Williams. Posh's new boss has certainly made a good impression in doing so, with his squad earning a combined of £108,800 per week and £5.67 per year in the meantime. Like Burton, they've got a squad size of 29, but their average player makes £40 more a week. At number 13, we've got a bit of a shocker, with the majority of this team's fans arguing they're a top 5 club in terms of club size, but we've got newly promoted side Bradford City. You would have thought Bradford City would be at least a top 10 club in terms of highest wage bill, especially with Graham Alexander signing a plethora of experienced campaigners following the Bantam's dramatic promotion last term, and it's honestly mental how they're not in the top half in terms of wages. With that being said though, their annual wage bill comes in at 5.8 million, and their average player takes home £4,475 a week. At number 12, and exactly halfway in this ranking, are last season's playoff finalists, Leyton Orient. Richie Wellenside defied expectations by reaching the showpiece event at Wembley Stadium last term. They currently have a weekly wage bill of £117,000, adding up to a total of £6.08 million across the campaign. Based on a squad size of 29, their average player makes £4,367 a week. At number 11, and with an annual wage bill of £6.24 million, we've got Wigan Athletic. Just inside the top half of the list are Wigan, who have won the League One title on 3 occasions within the past decade. At present, Ryan Lowside are enjoying an inconsistent season, which isn't fully in line with Mike Damson's weekly payroll in Lancashire. Based on a squad size of 28, their average player makes £4,642 a week. At number 10, we've got Reading. After years of uncertainty under Dai Young's ownership, the 25-26 season marked a new era for Reading under the stewardship of Rob Cowie. However, there has been a tumultuous beginning to the season for the Berkshire outfit, with Liam Richardson now at the helm following Noel Hunt's dismissal in October. At present though, the Royals have the 10th highest wage bill, which adds up to approximately £6.28 million over the regular season. Considering they've got a big squad of 31, their average player makes £4,220 a week. At number 9, we've got Stockport County with an annual wage bill of £6.37 million. Stockport's recent upwardly mobile trajectory has continued this season under Dave Challoner, with a high chance they could become a championship club for the first time since 2002. The Greater Manchester side have bounced back from the playoff semi-final heartache in some fashion. Mark Stott is continuing to fund a side with an average weekly wage bill of £4,739 per player. At number 8, and to some surprise, we've got Wycombe Wanderers. Wycombe also fell at the semi-final stage of last season's playoffs and currently have the 8th highest wage bill in League One under the ownership of Kazakhstani billionaire Mikhail Lamatzi. The chairboys are now under management of Michael Duff, following Mike Dodd's September exit, with the squad being paid an overall sum of £6.42 million across this season. Their average player makes £4,953 a week. At number 7, we've got Rotherham United. Rotherham's current wage bill is certainly reflective of a club with recent championship pedigree, even though the Millers are yet to assert themselves as the real contenders once more in the current League One stint. Tony Stewart remains the owner at present, and he's paying Matt Hamshaw's squad a collective figure of £6.72 million over the season. They have got quite a big squad size of 32 though, so their average player takes home £4,375 a week. Now wedging their way into the top 6 are Blackpool, who for the most part have performed well below expectations. Well, prior to the recent appointment of Ian Evatt, that is. The Tangerines owner, Simon Sadler, remains a divisive figure at Bloomfield Road this season, but is parting with £159,000 a week to fund those on his side. Blackpool's wage bill of the season comes in at a total of £8.28 million, and going off a 22-man squad, the average player is making £7,800 per week. Mental. At number 5, we've got Plymouth Argyle. It has been one of the most disastrous returns to League One for Plymouth, with the locals already making their feelings known towards the home park hierarchy. It's safe to say Tom Cleverley has been unable to see his youthful and newly moulded side gel yet, for what has probably been the worst return on investment this season in League One. Having said that, Argyle's annual wage bill comes in at £8,730,000 per year, and based on a squad size of 27, their average player makes £6,700 per week. At number 4, we've got Bolton Wanderers with an annual wage bill of £8,870,000. It has been the exact opposite for ex-Plymouth boss Stephen Schumacher, as his new side Bolton Wanderers are full of confidence at present. The Liverpudlian oversaw a summer of mass and much needed turnover at the Tough Sheet Community Stadium, which has resulted in the side having the 4th highest weekly wage bill in League One. And based on Bolton's club size, there's no surprise at all that they're up here. And their average player makes a whopping £7,100 per week. At number 3, and 3 times as much as fellow League One side Exeter City's annual wage bill, we've got Huddersfield Town. If you were going to dispute Plymouth Argyle with probably the worst return on investment this season, you'd either put Huddersfield as a close second or a contender for number 1. Kevin Nagle has not been afraid to back Lee Grant in the summer, and despite the fact he hadn't had the best CV, based on purely the investment into the team this season, how could Huddersfield Town possibly not go up? Like, even if they had the likes of Wayne Rooney at the helm, this team on paper is far too good for League One. Their annual wage bill comes in at £12.5 million, and their average player makes the average annual UK salary in a month, which comes to about £9,645 a week. But even from there, it is then another fairly seismic jump to what Cardiff City are currently paying Brian Barry Mercy's charges after relegation from the Championship. Despite not being the most active of clubs in the summer transfer window, the Bluebirds are said to have a weekly wage bill of £265,000 and a seasonal figure of over £13.7 million. Based on a squad size of 25, their average player makes just over £500,000 a year and nearly £11,500 a week. However, it'll come as a very little surprise to learn that Luton Town boasts the most expensive wage bill in League One this season. The Hatters are still benefiting from the Premier League parachute payment scheme, and it just makes the money in League One seem mental. Despite saving plenty of funds for the upcoming Power Court Stadium, Gary Sweet is parting with a weekly figure of £340,000. That comes to over £17.7 million a season to pay a squad, with Jacob Brown the top earner despite a clear lack of minutes for the forward this term. Cool, and their average player makes £12,300 a week. But anyway, yeah boys, I'm going to end the video there. I do hope you enjoyed. Comment down below what sorts of videos you want to see next. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. But yeah, see you in the next one.